Assalamu alaikum. This is Megan Wyatt at About Islam answering your question. So the first thing that I would like to point out is something that really struck me reading your question, and that is that your most important concern, aside from everything else, is in the area, number one, of you sinning in some way that could displease Allah, and number two, worried that your husband will continue to sin in some way and displease Allah. And that shows something really praiseworthy about your heart. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and continue to illuminate your heart with guidance and strengthen your iman, because the most important thing we're ever supposed to care about in this life is our Lord. And that is at the forefront of your thinking and your conversation. So that really jumped out at me, and kind of addressing that from a counseling perspective, you weren't clear what sin you were afraid of committing by staying in the marriage. And I wasn't sure if you meant that you were afraid that divorcing your husband would be sinful, which it's not. Divorce is not something that is considered a sin. Or if you were worried that because of the nature of your relationship and the way your husband has treated you, that you might do something sinful. And in that case, it's good that you are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you care, and you're looking out for yourself and recognizing that the way things are isn't okay, and it might be potentially setting you up for a situation where you could do something wrong. So in either case, your level of awareness is praiseworthy, but it is important to note, if it's about the idea of not being with your husband, that wouldn't be something that's considered sinful. You've described a man who's consistently been associating with other women, having romantic involvement with them, sexual involvement with them. He approached even your best friend, who's a married woman, and she finally came forward and shared that information with you. There just hasn't been an individual present that is showing you that he is serious about your marriage and your relationship, and committed and honored to you as the woman in his life right now. And so that is, a really serious situation. That being said, you're not responsible in any way for his behavior and for his choices. So you've been married to him all this time, and he is doing those things, which shows that, your presence, no matter how often you cook or clean, or you're a beautiful woman, and the different things, that you praised about yourself, those things aren't enough for someone to just suddenly stop behaviors and bad choices that they're making. The reason he's making those choices has nothing to do with you. You don't need to defend yourself or try to explain that you fulfill his rights in marriage. Rather is to seek to understand what's missing inside of him as a person that would cause him to consistently sin in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to go further than that, you've mentioned that he talks badly about you to other people and within the community. And the most interesting point in this was that you said you felt that you and others forced him into this marriage, and you don't believe he really wanted to be married to you. And even with that, I have to tell you, this is a man who clearly makes up his mind, follows through with things that he wants, makes his own decisions. And so him marrying you was something that he agreed to and he chose, right? There was no one with a gun to his head saying, you have to walk through and marry this woman or we're going to kill you, right? This was somebody who agreed and he said yes, and he's responsible for that. If he felt that in some way he made a mistake and you weren't the right person for him, and you're not the person he wants to stay with, and he doesn't feel he could honor you or do you justice in the way that you deserve, and to fulfill the rights that a Muslim woman has in marriage, then he would be obligated at that point to let you go, freely, and to let you, understand his feelings, and that he, didn't make the right choice, and to send you on with your way, send you on with your life so that you can go and find a person who is right for you. But he's neither done this or that, right? So he's neither said he made a mistake, he doesn't want to be with you, that's your assumption. And at the same time, he's not shown any commitment to you within the marriage, aside from the bare minimum, as you mentioned, which is, paying the bills, basically. So I think it's important for you to remove this idea or this burden that you've somehow forced him to marry you, or anybody forced him. He's accountable for his choices. But what you did do was you gave him an opportunity now to be honest. You came clean with everything you know about him, his secrets, the things that you're aware of, the things that you've been hearing. You let him know how you were feeling. You went home and he didn't try to stop you. And I don't know between the time you wrote that question and the time you get this answer, if he'll have tried to ask you to come back or change his mind or has been completely silent. But I think in all of this, the most important thing to ask is, at this point, one, do you see anything within him that makes you want to fight for this relationship to work out? Do you want to get family involved? Do you want an intervention? Are there parts of him that you care about enough to fight to stay together? And if so, then it's your choice to fight for the marriage and for it to heal and for it to survive. And that is, again, up to you. If, on the other hand, there aren't enough things in the marriage which you've experienced in his presence to fight for, then maybe you have your answer, and that you've gone home and he didn't stop you, and also he's not been loyal or committed to you, that you've had your answer for a while, what you needed to do, but you just didn't take the steps because perhaps, like many, many other people, there is that hope that your spouse is going to change. So you're at a crossroad right now. And rather than working from a place of fear, I want you to work from a place of positive intent. What do you want for yourself? What do you want for your husband? What do you want for the future of your marriage? What kind of future do you want? Ask forward-thinking questions. So this is sort of me coming in with my coaching hat now, right? So that's part of what we work on whenever I work with a client is, we can talk about what's happened, but most important right now in this moment is, but where do you want to go with this? What do you need and what do you want? So you've got some serious questions to ask yourself, but most importantly is not to blame yourself for his choices, because there is no way for him to blame you. Even you mentioned being a good cook and taking care of the house. Like I always tell women, even if you were the worst cook in the world or the worst woman in the world, right? He's still responsible, which by the way, I know you're not, but he's still responsible for his choices. Considering the fact that also he is the man, right? A man is obligated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take charge of his family, to guide his family. So the burden of responsibility falls on his shoulders to address what is going on and to be held accountable for his actions and to make a decision as well what he's going to do next. And you also then have your own responsibility to decide what it is you want to ask for and what it is that you need. But I don't think this situation is going to get better all by itself. You're going to have to involve your family and his family. This guy is making some serious mistakes, which are sinful, as you said. So if you really want to help him or support him so that he doesn't continue to make those mistakes, one thing you can do, as uncomfortable as it is involve, the third party within your family. That's directly from the Quran, that when there's, this fear that a couple is going to split apart, then you can bring someone from his side and someone from her side, and you have an intervention and you work together and you lay out what's been going on so that somebody has the opportunity to reach him to get him to stop. Again, whether or not you decide to return to him and work on healing from that marriage, and whether or not you decide to return and say things have got to be different than the way they've been, or you decide that you've had enough and that you don't want to continue with him, either way, that intervention will be helpful, because this might be one of the only ways to help this individual recognize that his secrets can no longer continue, at least not in the sphere that has to do with you and your family. So this is a lot. You're dealing with the community talking about things, your best friend coming to you with text messages, finding out about other women talking to him. This is a lot. And I ask Allah to grant you patience and strength, moving through this really big test.